Hey everyone, and welcome back to Roadside Coder, and welcome to the 10th video of our MERN Stack Tutorial Series. And in today's video, we are going to see the complete user authentication in React.js by using node.js and express.js as a backend and MongoDB as a database. So first, we are going to implement our user authentication, that is login and sign up, in our backend, and then we'll go on to create login and sign up forms in the front end, and then use the backend API to create the front end functionality. We are also going to store our user data in our local storage so that every time we open the browser until we log out, we have our user logged in. So without any further ado, let's get started. So I've opened our node zipper folder here in VS Code, and let's go to our backend folder, and as you can see, we have created our server inside of this file. If you have not yet seen that video in which we are creating our server, click on the I button above or check the link in description for that video. So now over here you can see we have created a few routes for serving our nodes. So these routes are currently serving the static data. They are not serving the data from the backend, but we want the data to be served from our backend. So for our user authentication, we are going to create a backend functionality where we can successfully register our user by storing the data in the database, and then we are going to fetch that data by using the login API. So for now, let me remove this app.get API, and this let's just keep this API for now because we're using this in the front end. So now I'm going to change our folder structure a little bit. So we're going to first create a new folder for routes, and another folder I'm going to create for controllers. So this routes folder will have file which will contain individual routes for, let's say, one route is for nodes. So it's going to contain one file which contains all the routes for the nodes, and another file will be for, let's say, user. So let me just show you real quick. So if I create app.use, so we're going to create a new route over here. So let's say API/users. So all of the routes related to the users are going to go in the user routes file. So let's go to routes and create a new file called user routes.js. And inside of this file, I'm going to import express require express. Okay. So we're going to import express, and then we're going to import something called router from express. So const router equals express dot router. All right, now let's create our first route over here. So router dot route. So this route is basically an API endpoint. So we're going to create a slash route. And so since we are registering, that is, we are storing the data in our backend, so we are going to use the post request. So post, and we are going to have a controller inside of it, which we will create inside of the controllers folder. So don't worry if you are not able to understand the folder structure, you will eventually understand what I'm doing over here. So let's import this route first of all. So module dot exports equals router. Whoops, router. All right, so we've imported it. Now let's, we have exported that let's import it over here. So user routes. Okay, it's not auto importing. Let me quickly go and manually import it. So const user routes will be imported from require dot slash routes slash user routes. Okay, let me make this destructured. Okay, I guess that's imported. Okay, let's start our app. Let's go to our terminal, and in our root folder, I'm going to type npm start. Npm start, or you can write node and then the server.js file's name. So I've configured this script over here if you don't remember. Where is it? Whoops, okay, that's package lock. Yep, there you go. Node-mon backend/server.js. Okay, we have some error over here. Okay, that's my bad. I wasn't supposed to do this. I wasn't supposed to destructure it because that's a default import. All right, now let's see. Okay, fine. Our server is running fine. Okay, now let's create our controller function for it. So inside of the controllers, I'm going to create a new file and create user controllers. And here, let's create a function called register user. It's going to be an asynchronous function since we're going to make requests to MongoDB. So request comma response, as we have done previously. So inside of it, let's accept few of things from the user. So what do we need to register a successful user? So we're gonna need name, email, password, and picture. Okay, so we're gonna take all of these things from request.body. So understand this, when we request something from the user, we're going to use request, and when we provide something to the user, we use response variable. So we are requesting all of this stuff from the user currently. So let's take these things and let's display it. Let's throw it back to the user. So let's say response.json, and we're going to provide them with, let's say, name and email. Let's give them back all of these two things. Okay, fine. Let's import this function. So module.exports. Why do I keep saying import for exports? Anyway, so register user. Okay, we're exporting this. Let's import this over here. So register user. Okay, so import it const require. Let's try to import it again. Let me see what's the issue is. Module.exports. Yep, there you go. Yeah, it's working fine. Now let's test it out. Let's go to our Postman and let's quickly test this endpoint out. So I've opened our Postman over here, and let's create a new folder or new collection for this project. So I'm going to click on this plus icon over here, and it has created a new folder. So I'm going to name it node zipper. It's just to make your life easier. So inside of it, I'm going to create a new folder for user and auth. These are completely optional if you don't want to create folders for all of this. And now I'm going to create a new request for, it's going to be a post request for /API/users. Okay, so let's set post over here and write our URL. So I'm going to add a new variable for our localhost 5000 URL. So let's add an environment variable. This one, so for environment, I'm going to name it node zipper environment. And let's add a variable called URL. You don't need to understand all of this stuff. Just notice what I'm doing. HTTP localhost :5000. So I've created our URL. If you don't want to create the URL, you can directly enter it over there. So let's go over here and inside the double curly braces. So URL, I'm going to use this variable and /API/users. Okay, fine. Everything looks good. Let's click on send. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's inside of our body, I'm going to give this some JSON data, and we're going to give name. Let's say Yush. Oops. And let's give email, password, and picture. And let's use example.com and 223, I think. So yeah, let's try to request these. Okay, could not send request. So what's wrong over here? I think, okay, we haven't selected our environment. So now we're gonna be good. So just click on over here and select node zipper environment, and now try to send it. So it's sending the request, but nothing's happening. Let's go to our console, and there's some error. There's some huge errors. Cannot destructure property name of request.body. Okay, so resolve this error. What do we need to do? We just need to go to server.js, and below this is a very important point you have to do every time whenever you accept the JSON data from the user. So app.use express.json. Just type this and let's try it out again. Let's click on send, and there we go. We get name and email back from the server, I mean. All right, cool. Now, before moving forward, I would like to install a few of the dependencies. So I'm gonna go over here and type npm install. First dependency will be for bcrypt. So bcrypt.js. The other one will be express async handler. And the third one will be JSON Web Token. You'll know all of these things when we use all of them. So let's say bcrypt is used for encrypting our passwords, express async handler for handling our errors, and JSON Web Token is to create a token for the user. So let's keep moving forward for now, and I'll explain you along the way. Let's start our server again. Now, so we are going to store the user data in our database. So for that, we need to create a model for our user. So let me explain what model is. So I'm going to create a new folder over here, model, and I'm in models, models. And inside of this models folder, I'm going to create a new file called user model.js. So what is a model? So model defines what type of data user is going to have. For example, it's going to have a name, which is going to be a string. It's going to have an email, which is going to be a string. It's going to have a password. It's going to have a picture. So all of these different things that the user data is going to store. So let me quickly write it over here. So we're going to use Mongoose to create our user model. So import Mongoose from Mongoose. And we're going to import bcrypt. Bcrypt from bcrypt. Okay, let me just copy the user schema. Then I'll explain what it is. Okay, there we go. Let's understand what's going on over here. So we've created a new variable called user schema, and we're using mongoose.schema over here. So inside of here, first of all, we're going to take the name, which is a required field. So we've given required equals true. You can go to MongoDB's official website to read more about these data types. And it's going to be a type string. Second, we're going to have an email, which is going to be unique. Remember, no two users can have a same email, right? So it's going to be unique, and required is going to be true because it is required. We're going to have password string, which is also required. Is admin, so just in case we need any admin functionality in our app, it's good to have is admin field over here, which is going to be a boolean. So it's going to be by default false, but it's going to be required. So yeah, that's another thing. And we're going to have a picture, and we've given a default pic over here. So if you click on this link, you can just add any default picture over here. So I've just added this link over here. If you want to get this link, you just need to go to github.com/piyush-eon and just find the node zipper repository. So node zipper, just go to this repository inside of the backend folder, inside of the models. Whoops, not nodes model, the user model, and just take this link if you need it. Okay, so right now we don't need it. I mean, I don't need it. It's already over here. So by default, it's going to have this value if the user don't want to set the picture. So yeah, this is what it is. And we're going to set the timestamps to true so that we can track when this field was created in the database and when it was updated. So great, this is our user schema. So let's go down over here and export it successfully. Const user equals mongoose dot model. And we're going to name this model user, and inside of it, we're going to have a user schema that we created above. And let's export it. So module.exports equals user. Great. Now, another thing. So we are using all of this schema, but before saving the data to the database, we want something that encrypts our data. We want our password to be encrypted. Or you know what, let's just leave that for now, and let's create our user controller first for our registration, and then we'll talk about it later. So now let's see, since we are accepting all of these 4 fields from the user, now first of all, let's just import our user model over here. So const user equals require / model/user model. Okay, and we are going to import one more thing. So const async handler from express async handler. So what we are going to do, we are going to wrap this function inside of this async handler. So this is going to handle all of the errors that are going to be in our application. So it's going to be useful for us. Okay, now after we are taking the input from the user, we need to check if the user already exists in our database. So const user exists equals await. I'm gonna await this. So user dot find one. So these are the queries of Mongoose or MongoDB. So you can learn more about it on their website. There are tons of such queries, but I'm going to explain all of the important ones in our course. So don't worry about that. So we're going to find it by email. So user dot find one. Okay, so if there's some a user with this email in our database, it's going to find it and it's going to return it our user exists. So let's check now. If there's something inside of user exists if there's something, then what are we going to do? We're going to throw an error. So response dot status. So status, this is the status code for error, and we're going to throw new error. Throw new error. User already exists. All right. But if the user doesn't exist, what we're going to do? We're going to create a new user in our database. So const user equals await user, and this is the function to save it to our database, create. We're going to create a new user in our database. So going to use name, email, password, and picture. Great. So if this is successfully created, then so let's check if user, that means if this is successfully created, if there's something inside of it, then we're going to send a response. So response dot status 201, that is it's successful, and we're going to return the JSON with all of these things except our password. So I'm going to return ID. It's going to give us an ID which will come from the database. So ID comma name, which will be user dot name. Oops, let me write the ID as well. ID will be user dot ID. Don't worry, you'll understand all of this. Let me just write it quickly first. So another one will be email, and then the picture. All right, there we go. And let's take the isAdmin as well if we need, for just to check. So you might remember we put this isAdmin as default, so it should already should have been set to the false since we are not providing it. So if the user exists, then I mean it's successfully created, then it's going to return this. Else it's going to throw us an error. That means there's something went wrong. Let me remove this first of all. Else response dot status of error, that is 400, and throw new error, which is going to be user not found. Let's say error. Yep, let's try this out. Let's go to our postman and let's try this out. And I'm going to send this request now. There we go. It has successfully created. Now let's go to our database and check if it has successfully been created or not. We're going to select our project. For you, it might be just single projects if you have not created other projects as well. So this is our project. Let's go to collections. And there we go. We have a user field over here, and our user is successfully created. But there's a problem. You can see our password is in the normal form. It's not in encrypted form. So this is a huge risk for our application. So let's go on and encrypt this password. All right. I'm gonna go to user model.js, and before this we are going to add some instructions that before saving you need to encrypt the user password. So user schema dot pre. So pre means previous of what? Saving operation. Before saving, what do? We're gonna call a function, and it's going to be a middleware, so it's going to have a next inside of it, so that after this operation is done, it can move on to the next part of the operation. So if this dot is modified, so it's a mongoose function. This dot is modified. We're checking if the password is modified or not. If this was not modified, then we're gonna move on. So next. Otherwise, we're going to generate a salt from bcrypt. So this is a bcrypt functionality. So we are generating a salt for our password. So it's going to be a unique salt. Salt.bcrypt.gensalt. So we're generating a salt. We can generate a salt asynchronously synchronously as well. This we are generating it asynchronously. So gensalt. And let's say it's going to have a value 10. The more higher the value, the more secure the password. So this dot password equals await bcrypt So these are the functions of bcrypt. You can read more about it from their documentation. So we're hashing it, this dot password comma salt. So we're using the this dot password, that is the password that the user has entered. We are using it and we're adding the salt to it and then making it encrypted. Okay, great. So let's try this out. Let's go to our Postman and try to make this request again. Remember, this email is now stored in our database, so this should give us an error. So let's send it. There we go, user already exists. Let's create a new email. Let's say piyush1@example.com and let's send it again. Now it has successfully created, and now let's go and check our database. I'm going to go over here and refresh. There we go, our password is encrypted in our database. Congratulations, you have successfully done the user registration part. Okay, there's one confusion. So just let me switch to back to that email and send it. Now you can see this error. This error it is giving us this HTML document over here. So we don't want this HTML document. We want a proper error. So what do? We're going to create a middleware for throwing us errors. So I'm going to create a new folder called middlewares. And inside of this folder, I'm going to have our error handlers. So for the common errors, we're going to add a new file called error middleware.js. And let me create the few error middlewares over here, and then I'll explain what's happening. Okay, so I've created two middlewares over here. First one is not found. When the route is not found, for example, we are requesting this API/users. If let's say we write some route that doesn't exist, so it's going to give us this error, not found, and there's dash the requested URL. And then it's going to throw us an error and it's going to move on. So the other one is for general errors. It's going to see what the error is being thrown by the server, and it's going to convert it in a structured form. Just like that. So it's going to give us a message and it's going to give us a stack, but we don't want the stack if the application is in production form. So we're gonna add a node env in our .envs. So let's go on over here and create a node env. Currently our app is in development, so let's just add development over here. You don't need to worry much about all of these things. They are not that much important, but yeah, you need to add this error middleware. Now let's include this in our server file. So I'm gonna go to server and I'm gonna below this app.use first not found, and then the other one will be error handler. Let's see if they are imported or not. Yes, they are imported. So what's wrong? I've made this mistake of using this. So module.exports equals both of these. Okay, now it should work fine. Let's go back to our Postman and check it out. Let's send this again, and there we go. We have our errors in much more structured format. So user already exists. Great. So we have successfully done our registration route or our registration API. Now let's move on to create our login API. But before creating our login API, I want to create another function in our user models.js. So this one was to encrypt the function, but I'm going to create another function that is going to decrypt our password. So inside of the user schema, we are going to create a function called by using methods, and we're going to create a method called match password. So you're gonna know how we're going to use it in just a second. So for now, let's create it. Let's say it's an async function. So async function, and it's going to enter password, and then it's going to return. Oh, wait, bcrypt. So there's a function of bcrypt called compare. So it's going to compare the passwords from our database and the entered password. So entered password will be compared from this dot password. So this dot password will be the password that will be coming from our database. So let me show you real quick. Let's go to the controllers, and first of all, let's go to routes, and I'm going to create a new route for our login. Let's duplicate it and create a new route for login. All right. and we're gonna have login user function. So let's go login user or auth user. Let's go into our user controllers file and create a new function. So I'm just gonna copy this function over here and paste it down here, and let's for now remove the content and gonna name it auth user. Let's export it real quick. All right, and let's import it over here. Auth user, there we go. All right, so what do we need for a user to log in? We're gonna need our email and our password. That's right. So let's use both of these things to log in our user successfully. So const, we're gonna find our user in our database. Const user equals await user dot find one. We're going to use this find one function of Mongoose. So we're gonna find it by email. So as you know, our email is unique. So we're gonna find it by using our email. So it's gonna check if user, if there's something inside of the user, and it's going to check if the password is correct or not. So await. So by using user dot match password, as you know, we have created this function a second ago, match password. So we're going to match the password, and we're going to supply it the current password that we are taking from over here. So you're supplying it the password. So this is going to check, and it's going to let us know if the password is true or false, that is, it's correct or not. So response.json, then we're going to return the data. We are going to return this data: ID, name, email, is admin, and pic. Great. And but if the user is not found, so we're going to throw an error. So let's take this error. Invalid email or password. All right, so we're going to throw this error. Great. Now let's try this out. Let's go to Postman. I'm going to create a new request for post/API/users/login. Here as well, I'm going to have /API/users/login. And let's take this data. Body, we're going to put raw and JSON over here. And we just need to send our password and email. Let's try this out. Okay, this is a post, so let's post it and send. User.match password is not a function. Okay, there's a error over here. Let's see what we did wrong. So we created this match password. Okay, there we go. We are missing a D over here. Let's try this out again. Let's send email or okay, invalid email or password. I think this is correct. Okay, it's matching this. So okay, we are not supposed to use this because in this one the password is not encrypted yet. So let's use piyush1@example.com. Let's send it. Yep, that is working absolutely fine. There you go. We can see the ID, name, email. Okay, this pic data is not correct. So I'm not going to send the pic this time. So let's send John@example.com. Let me give the name as John Doe and password as 123456. Let's send it. Unexpected token. Okay, we have added the comma over here. Let's send it again. And we have successfully logged in, and you can see our default picture is added in over here. So go to login and whoops, I am going to log in again by using John. So John@example.com and password 123456, and let's log in. Yep, that's working absolutely fine. Great, we have successfully created the backend functionality for our user login and authentication. Congratulations. So let's recap real quick. So we have created this route over here /API/users. And then inside of this routes, we are creating two new routes, first for register and the other for login. So inside of the register, let's go. We are taking all of these fields from the user. We're checking if it exists inside of the database or not. If it doesn't exist, I mean, if it exists, then user already exists error. Otherwise, we're going to save it in our database. And similarly, we are using it for our login as well. If you don't understand, I mean, if you didn't understand any of this part, you can just comment down below and ask me anything. So anything related to bcrypt or user models or anything. Okay, hold on. I forgot to add one thing in our backend functionality, and that is JWT token. So whenever we are sending all of this stuff, we are sending our name, this name, email, is admin pic. We need to send a token to the front end, which the front end is going to use to authenticate to our backend. So we're going to use the something called JWT token. So we have installed our JSON Web Token just a minute ago by using, not a minute ago, a little while ago. So by using this npm install JWT token, JSON Web Tokens. So I'm going to go to our backend and create a new folder called utils. And inside of it, I'm going to create a new file called generate token.js. And inside of it, we're going to generate our token. So I'm going to const JWT, import JWT from JSON Web Token. And we're going to write a function called generate token. Token. So what it's going to take, it's going to take the ID from our database, the user ID, and it's going to return it in form of the encrypted token. So jwt.sign, and it's going to take the ID, and it's going to take something called JWT secret. So process.env, we're going to store it in our .env file. So jwt_secret. And we're going to set in what number of days the token is going to be expired. So let's write expires in, and you can give the days, the minutes, the hours. So let's just give it currently for 30 days. And module.exports generate token. All right, let's just write this JWT secret over here. So I'm going to go to my .env. And JWT secret equals PIYUSH1234. I'm going to write Piyush1234, and yep, that's all. Now let's test it out. What are we going to do? We're going to go back to our user controllers, and when we are sending this, we're going to send our generated token as well. Token generate token. We're going to import this function, and we're going to provide it user._ID. Similarly, we're going to do this to our authentication user as well. Let's import it. Okay, it's already imported at the top, just like that. Now let's test it out. It's Postman, let's log in. There we go. We are getting our token back successfully. Great. Similarly, in our register as well, it's gonna work. So let's just test it out. So let's, instead of John, let's write Jane. That's it. And it's working absolutely fine. So anyway, let's move on to our front end. Let's just close all of the tabs in our back end, and let's move on to our front end. I'm gonna open another terminal over here, and I'm gonna cd into front end and npm start. And you know what? I'm gonna change the theme of our editor. So currently it was for Node. I'm gonna change it for React. I think this is more like it. There we go. Our front-end application has successfully started. Let's go back to our VS Code and inside of our app.js. So as you can see, we have created our landing page route. Let's go to our landing page. So we have these two links over here for login and sign up, which are these two buttons, login and sign up. Currently they're not working. So let's start by creating the routes or the page for these two. I'm gonna go to app.js and create a new route. For both of these, first one will be for login and another one will be for register. This one is going to be the login page, and let's say this one register page. Instead of 5 screens, I'm going to folder for login page, another one for register page. So inside the login screen page, okay, you know what? Let's just rename it login screen and register screen, and changing these two as well. Okay, inside of the login screen, I'm going to create a new file for login screen.js and RAFCE and some boilerplate code. Let's just write login and similarly inside the register screen as well. So register screen.js, RAFCE, register. All right, cool. Let's go to app.js and import both of these, login screen, register screen. So we have imported both of these over here. All right, let's try this out. Let's see if this is working or not. Click on login. Okay, it takes us to login. There we go. Login is written over here. Let's click on sign up. Yep, it takes us the registers. All right, so what are we going to do? Let's go to our original application. So node.zipper.herokuapp.com. Let's see what we have to create over here. Meanwhile, that's opening. I'm going to open React Bootstraps documentation. Get started. So what are we going to use to create these? So, okay, let's log out. It's opened. All right, so in our login page, you can see we have two fields over here, one for email address and another for the password. And we have a button over here. And if the customer is new, we can click over here and go to register page. So it's a fairly easy UI. So let's go to React Bootstrap and I'm going to search form. So forms. So we're going to use this forms. So how do we create a form? We create something called form control, which will take an email. And inside of it, we can write a text. For example, we'll never share. Okay, we don't need this text. We're not going to use form.text. So we can create a form group and we're going to have a parent ID for parent tag of form. So just like that, we can create a form. So let's go back. And also for our button, we can write this button tag over here, as we have already seen in our React Bootstrap video. So let's go back to our text editor. Let's go to our login screen and let's start building our login screen. Okay, first of all, we are going to need this main screen component over here. You might remember that we have created that it takes the title of the page. So I'm gonna go over here and type main screen. And what does it take? It takes a title, which is going to be login in our case. Let's check. Oops. Okay, main screen. Let's see. Let's go to login. Oh, there we go. Login is working fine. Let's just give it some capital. So login. That'll look good. Yep, that looks good. Now below this, we're gonna create a few forms. So let me create the forms and then I'll be back in a second. All right, there we go. I've created a UI for our form. So you can see over here. So let me explain what I've done. So we have used a div for login container. So, okay, I have to use this class name. We're going to use this class name in just a minute. So I've created this form tag over here, which goes till over here. So inside of it, we have created a form group, just like in our documentation. We have created a form for an email address. So it's going to have form.label and it's going to have form.control. Just ignore these comments for now. It's going to be a type of email and placeholder will be an enter email. So let's check it out. So this is the label and the form. And just like similarly for our passwords as well, we have done this. We have the type of password and it's going to have placeholder of password and a button for submitting it. And below this, we are having a row which asks new customer. Then it's going to push us to the register here link. All right, so let me just add these styles. These styles are nothing but just to add a few margin for this form. So let me add a new file, login screen.css. Let me import this CSS. Login screen.css. There we go. And for login screen CSS, we're going to add this. We're going to add a display of flex selection column and a margin, mainly this margin of 20 pixels. So let's check it out. So as you can see, it has provided it a margin of 20 pixels. Okay, that looks beautiful. Great. Also in our row, we have added padding of the vertical padding of 3 pixels. So that's another thing. All right, great. Now let's start adding the functionality. We're gonna create a few states over here, which are going to store our email, passwords, etc. So use state. First one will be for email. It's going to have default value of nothing. So let's import the use state. Yep, just like that. Let's create another use state for password. It's not going to have anything. Let's create another state for errors. So use state error. By default, there's nothing going to be inside of the error. and another state will be for the loading. Now you're gonna know how we're going to use this error and loading in just a second. So it's also going to be false by default. Okay, I've misspelled it. Loading. Okay, there we go. Now, so whenever we're changing our email, it's going to call this onChange function, and it's going to set our email with the value e.target.value, and it's going to be a controlled input. So we're going to give it the value of email, that is this. This. Similarly for password as well, on change, it's going to change our state. So on the form submission, so inside of this form tag on submit, I'm gonna have a function called submit handler. It's gonna give us an error because submit handler is not defined. Const submit handler. So what this submit handler is going to do for now, it's just going to log error and pass, not error, email and password. Let's try this out. Let's go to Chrome and click on inspect. Alright, I forgot to add one thing. When we're submitting it, we should do this e.prevent default, and let's pass event from it. Okay, what is this? Okay, yeah, let's try this out again. Let's give it any this and this. Okay, there we go. We have our email and password successfully rendering over here. Great. Now let's move forward. So we have added our states and everything. Now it's time to call our API. Inside of this, let's remove this for now. I'm gonna add a try catch block. So I'm gonna write inside of this const config. So whenever we are making a API request that takes a JSON data, we need to provide it some headers. So headers, it's going to be content type. These spellings are very crucial, so make sure you take care of the capitalization and everything. So application/JSON. Okay, so we've created the config. Now let's create the request. But first of all, before creating the request, we need to set the loading to true. I'm gonna make the loading true, and after the request has successfully completed, I'm going to make the loading. So set loading to false. But between these, what we're going to do, we're gonna make the request. So const data equals await axios.post. We're gonna post in /API/users and /login. All right, now we're going to provide it with our email and password. There we go. And the third thing is going to be providing the config. So recap. So we've created the config over here. We are calling the API. We are providing it email and password and the config over here. Okay, there's something wrong. Okay, so this is an await. So it's going to have an async over here. So Axios is not defined. Let me import the Axios. Okay, import Axios from Axios. There we go. It should work now. And inside of the catch, we're gonna set the error. So set error dot response dot data dot message. All right, there we go. This will be our error setting. So let's set the error and loading first of all. Also, I need to add one more thing. When the process is successfully created, I want the email and password to be stored in our local storage. So local storage dot set item. I'm going to name it user info, and I'm going to set it in the stringify format, in the string format. So I'm going to use JSON.stringify because our local storage cannot store the object data. So we need to convert it into string data. So .stringify. There we go. Also, let's just log it. Let's log the data. Also notice over here, I'm destructuring the data out of whatever we get. So yeah, that's another thing. Okay, let's check this out. So I'm gonna type John @example and 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's submit it. There we go. We get the data from our backend. Congratulations, we have successfully created the login functionality in our front end. But wait, we need to create some error and loading components as well so that it looks good. I'm gonna go back to our VS Code, and inside of our components, inside of the components, I'm gonna create a new component for loading.js. And for the loading, we're going to use a loader from Bootstrap. So we're going to use a component called spinner. So let me create this component real quick. It's nothing very fancy over here. So we're going to import spinner from React Bootstrap. Let me show what this spinner is all about. So we're just giving it some height and width and some basic display of flex and some justify content and line item center to make it center of the screen. And it's going to have a default size of 100, but if we want to supply any size from outside, we can do that as well. So it's going to be set over here. So let me quickly go ahead and show you. So let's go over here above this, right above this, I'm gonna add loading. So if the loading is true, and so it's going to show the loading. Let's go to over here and let's click on submit. There we go. You can see there was a short loading over there and then our data appeared. So try again. Yep, there you go. Similarly, we need to create something for our error handling as well. So just have a quick look at the loader. So this is the animation. Just go to spinner in React Bootstrap documentation. You're gonna know it's just an easy documentation. You're gonna understand what this spinner is all about. So, and another thing, we're gonna create a new component for error message.js. So let me create it. So for the error message, we are going to use the alert component of Bootstrap. So let's go to Bootstrap and type alert. Yep, there we go. This is what we're going to use, this red one. So we've created alert. So it's going to take a variant. If we don't supply any variant, it's going to be by default info, which is blue one, and it's going to take some child. So let me quickly implement it and show you. So inside of the login screen, I'm gonna check if there's inside of something inside of the error, and then we're going to have error message. And inside of it, we're going to supply the error as children. And let me give the variant of danger. Let's check it out. Let's go over here. Let me refresh the page. And this time I'm going to John 1 2 3 4 5 6. So let me submit it. Yep, it's correct, but let me just remove one O and submit it now. Yep, you can see invalid email or password. And you can see this infinite loading as well. So let me make this false. After we get an error, set the loading to false. Then it's gonna be gone. Let's try it again. Submit. Yep, it's gone. Okay, great. We have successfully created our login functionality. Now let's move on to our registration functionality. But wait, we forgot to do one thing over here. So inside of the use effect, we are going to create a use effect. And we're going to check if there's something inside of the local storage. So we haven't checked our local storage yet, if it's storing successfully our data or not. Let's first do that. Let's go to application, and inside of the local storage, there we go. You can see user info is being stored successfully inside of this over here. So let me delete it for now. So inside of the use effect, it's going to take first of all something called history from React Router DOM. If you don't know about React Router DOM, you can go and watch my React Router DOM video. The link will be in the description and I button above. So inside of the use effect, I'm going to fetch the user info from our local storage. So local storage dot get item. get item. So we're getting this item user info from our local storage. And if there's something inside of the local storage that is user info, then we're going to be pushed to my notes page. And we're going to provide this the dependency of history and user info. So whenever it changes, it's going to trigger this use effect function. So user info is not defined. It is defined. Okay, I think we should create a state for it, but let's just remove it for now. We don't need it. Okay, so let's log in. So John and 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's submit. Okay, some error occurred, I guess. Oh wait, okay, submit. There we go. It has added it to there, but didn't push us to my notes. What's wrong? Let me refresh it. Yep, now it's pushing us. So if we try to go to /login, it's going to push us back. Okay. So let me just remove this from the application so that we can go back. Yep, now we can go back. And you know what? This use effect, we're not going to add it inside of our login screen. Let's just add it inside of our landing page. I think that is the place where it will make more sense, because that way we're not going to add it at our login screen and sign up screen, both the places. So we're just going to add our use effect over here. So use effect, let's import it. And for now, let's just keep it commented. We're going to uncomment it whenever we're going to use it. Okay, so yeah, that's that. And let's go to our register screen and let's quickly make our register screen as well. So I'm going to give it the main screen component. There we go. Title will be register. Let's see if it works or not. Let's go to sign up. Yep, there we go. Let's create the register component as well, just like we created our login. So I'm gonna create it and I'll be back in a second. All right, moving on. So I've created this form over here. So let's go to our browser and check. Okay. Yep, there we go. Our form has been created. Let me explain this real quick. So there's nothing special, just same thing. We have created this login container just like previously to give us a little bit space at the sides. And we have a form over here with a form group of name, of email, of password, and confirm passwords, because we're going to make the user enter it twice. So confirming the password. And for our profile picture, we are having a form.file. So form.file is the part of Bootstrap. So it provides us a UI like this, where we can select our photos. All right, cool. Now let's start adding the functionality. So let's go to our code, and I'm gonna start by creating a few states. So these are the states that I have created. So let me import the use state over here. Okay, so first of all, the state will be for the email, the name, for a picture. So I've provided it this default picture link over here that I have provided in our database. It's optional if you don't provide it, it's all right, but I'm just providing it. For example, if the user doesn't provide any image, so it's going to take this image and give it to our database. And I've created for our password, for our confirm password. This is going to be a message. For example, if the user enters the wrong password, it's going to throw the error with this message component. And this pic message, if the user doesn't select a pic, it's going to display an error above the picture by using this. And I'm going to create two new use states for our error as well. And for by default, it's going to be false. And for our loading, and it's going to be false as well. Okay, so let's remove these commented out things. So it's going to set our state. You already know the drill. So this is just the basic React, nothing else. Okay, there we go. Let's try this out if it's working or not. Go to the console and let's create a submit handler for us. So form on submit. It's going to call submit handler. So right below this const. All right, and I'm going to log email. Let's just log email for now, just to test it out. So let's write anything over here. Let's add a picture, it doesn't matter, just register. Okay, our email is logging. That means our form is working fine. Okay, great. So first of all, before entering, I'm gonna check if the password not equals to the confirm password. So we have a password and confirm password state over here. If it's not same, then we are going to throw an error. What error are we going to throw? Set message. So this message component that we have created over here. So set message, passwords do not match, else we're going to move forward and call our API. So let's try this out first. So this is the message component. So if the message is true, then the error will be danger, and you know drill what's gonna happen after that. So let's try this out. If the password are not same, which they are not, so there we go, passwords do not match. Great, that's working fine. Else there will be nothing inside of the set message, empty, or yeah, null. And we're going to have a try catch for calling our API. So just like previously, we're going to create a config with our headers of content type application/JSON, and we're going to set the loading to true, and we're going to call our API. Just like that, we're setting the loading to true, and we're calling the API/API/users, and it's going to be a post. So then we're going to provide it with name, pic, email, and password, and our config. And after that, we're going to set our loading to false, and we are going to set our item to local storage, just like that. So okay, await, again we forgot to do this async. Okay, Axios is not defined. There we go. Now it is defined. Where to go? Okay, so inside of the catch, we're going to set our error, just like that. And let's uncomment this out. It's just same as previous. I didn't want it to waste your time. That's why I already written all of this stuff and just commented it out. So there we go. All right, so I guess it should work fine now. Okay, now let's try to do some registration. test@example.com. And currently we are not setting our photo, so no use of doing that. So let's try to register. Okay, I guess that it's successfully registered because we forgot to log out the data. So let me check our database real quick. Let's refresh it. Okay, there we go. test@example.com. We have successfully registered with this test account. All right, great. Let's go back, and this time I'm gonna log the data as well. All right, and did the loading work? I did not notice it. So I guess it would have worked. Anyway, so now is the most important part. Now we're gonna add the picture uploading functionality. So for that, I'm going to go to my browser and to a new tab, and I'm gonna search Cloudinary. So Cloudinary is the service which provides us with the data storing functionality. So let me just log in real quick. So after you create an account on Cloudinary, I'm going to tell you what do you need to do to store your images successfully in Cloudinary. So after you have successfully created your account, just go to this settings icon over here and go to upload. And here just scroll down, you can see under upload presets, you need to check this enable unsigned uploading. So I've enabled it, and I need to add upload preset. So I'm gonna add, let's say, note zipper for this project, and signing mode will be unsigned, and save. And that's all. That is all that you need to do. Now let's go back to our dashboard, click on more, and here you can see you have these base delivery URLs. So what do you need to do? Just go over here. Sorry, this API base URL. Just click on this arrow and take this URL. Just copy this URL up. And remember the name of the project that you gave. For me, it was node zipper. For you, it might be different, whatever you have set it. So now I'm going to create a function below this. for setting our picture. So you can see we have created a pic. Yep, there we go, a pic state. So we're going to store the pic inside of it. But first, let me demonstrate how this is going to work. So I'm going to create a function called post details. So it's going to post the picture and take the details. So it's going to take pics. Okay, pic is already defined. So let me just write pics over here. So first of all, set pic message is going to be null, because that's our error handler. So it's going to be null at first. Also, I'm going to check if the pics is undefined. Okay, not this. If the pic is undefined, or let's just write like this. If there's nothing inside of the pics, let's return the error of please select an image. Otherwise, it's going to be null. Okay, now let's move forward. Now let's check if pics, let's validate it. If pics.type is image slash JPEG, or it's like image slash PNG. If that's the case, then we're going to move forward. We're going to create a new form data. So this is how it works. Whenever we want to upload a new file, we create a new form data. You might be aware of it. This is some basic HTML. So new form data. So data.append. These are just generic code which we use while uploading photos and files with Cloudinary or with anything. So we're gonna add a new field for pics, and we're gonna add data.append, and we're going to append our upload preset. So what was our upload preset? So upload underscore preset. What was the upload preset for us? For me, it was node zipper. And again, we're going to add another append, which is going to be cloud name. And I'm gonna have to give my username over here. So roadside coder. So how can you find your username? It's just right over here. See, it's right over here. Just write that. So roadside coder. And after that, you need to add fetch. So we're gonna fetch with this link, and we're gonna add some methods inside of it. So method will be post, and body will have the data. Great. Now whatever we receive from this fetch request, so this is just the simple fetch request that we use in JavaScript. So response dot convert it into JSON, and then data. Now we're going to set the picture. So this will provide us with the URL of the stored pic in the Cloudinary. So data.url.toString. So we're going to convert it to a string. Also, let's just log it. Let's just log the data over here as well. And then if the error occurs, we're going to catch it and we're going to log it over here. All right, there we go. Also, if the image is not a PNG or JPEG, then also we're going to provide it then error. So return set pics, please select an image. Okay, so that should work. So let's go to my image and let me remove this comment. So if the pic message has anything inside of it, it's going to send us the error message. And on change, I've added this on change over here. So it's going to take the event and event.target.the 0th index of our file. What means whichever, let's say if we select more than one image, it's going to select the first image that we have selected. So let's check it out. Let's test it. Let's go to node zipper and notice the console. Whenever I'm selecting an image, see, it's going to load it and it's providing us with this, all of the data over here. And inside of it, we are supposed to use the URL. So data.url, this is the link. So if I take this link, copy, and let's paste it over here. Whoops, let me remove the quotes and paste it. Yep, there you go. We have this image over here. Great, our image upload functionality is working absolutely fine. Now let's try to register our user finally. And let's give example.com. I've given this. Let's upload a profile picture and click on register. It's loading and let's check if it's done or not. Boom, it's done. We have a token, we have a picture, we have a name, we have an email and everything. So we have successfully completed our login and registration functionality in our front end as well. So there's one more thing left, that is our logout functionality. So to implement our logout functionality, what do we need to do? We just need to click on logout and it should clear our local storage. So it should clear this thing, this user info from our local storage. Okay, so let's go to our over here and it's located in the header, I believe. Yep, there we go, logout. So on click, it's gonna have a function which is going to do is this. It's going to do is local storage dot remove item user info. Great, let's test it out. If we click on this, it should fire this off. And let's just push us to, let's say, history dot push. Whoops, push to slash route. So it says history is not defined. Let's take the history out of React Outer DOM. So const history equals use history. Okay, it's imported or not? Yeah, it's imported. Let's see. Okay, it's imported. Okay, so it's inside of our local storage. Let's click on it and click on logout. Whoa, there we go. Whoops. So there we go. Let's try this out one more time. So, whoops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and try to log in. We have our user info. Let's try to log out. Log out. There we go. So our user login registration functionality is working successfully in our backend as well as in our front end. So thank you all for watching this video. If you like this video, just give it a huge fat thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It supports me a lot and motivates me to make more such videos. Also, if you haven't yet accessed the playlist, just go to youtube.com/roadsidecoder and go to playlists tab and just go over here. We have full MERN playlist over here. So you can watch the full playlist and follow along with the series. So thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.